Hi, this is Joe Rabil with Rabil Stock Research. So what I want to do today in today's lesson is typically when I'm looking at trading plays, I'm really focusing in a lot on MACD. It can really help in terms of timing and giving me a slight edge that can give me a little bit of a pop. But if I'm looking for a pattern where I'm really trying to dig into something that I think can go for the next 6 to 12 months, even a couple years, I'm going to lean on ADX for that. And I'm going to show you a simple strategy that I look for and how to basically just lay out this plan so that if something meets the criteria, you know that that has the potential to be something a little bit more significant than just a short-term trade. All right. Once we do that, I am going to give you a couple of examples in today's market of stocks that are setting up this way. But I want to go through the market and also go through the individual symbol requests that came through as well. All right, let's go ahead and get going. So for this lesson, I'm just using the two chart setup, and that's a monthly on the left and a weekly on the right. I wanted to do this specifically so we could really zero in and see what was going on with the indicators along with the price action. All right, now what I've done is I've scrolled back to Northrop Grumman dating back to 2010, 11, 12, 13, right before it kind of took off. And the reason I'm doing this is a live trade. This is something I did years ago, putting this trade on. And I want to give you the reasons behind the trade. And it sticks out in my mind because it just kept going up for years and years. It was such a long-term play that, there was a lot of time before that where it was building up energy. All right. And that's what we want to be on the lookout for. We're looking for something on a monthly chart to start that is showing at least 2 to 3 years of a low ADX condition, meaning where the ADX line, this blue ADX line, is staying low for a number of years. I want it to be at least 2 to 3 years. All right. Preferably, I'd like to have all 3 lines below, but if they're poking up a little bit like that, that's not a big deal. The other thing I want to look for is, so the basic rule of ADX is when ADX is low, draw trend lines on price and wait for a breakout. All right. So if you look at the way this was low, we have basically formed this horizontal trend line in place here. All right. Now you could have drawn in a trend line like this and seen that it was an ascending triangle formation. And knowing that, breaking through this, 73, 74, 75 area was a big deal based on this low ADX pattern. Now, before that actually took place, notice how the MACD crossed above the zero line, formed a little pinch. It gave you a little heads up that maybe something was coming. But if I'm just using the MACD, then I'm thinking just like a trading leg to the upside. I'm not necessarily looking for something that can go up and up and up. All right. Now there's 2 parts to this. We want to have the sideways action in the trend line, and we want it to look really good on this upper time frame, on this monthly time frame. All right. And we want to have this nice low ADX condition for a number of years. On the lower time frame weekly, all right, we then want to look for another low ADX condition. Now, it doesn't have to be quite as pretty as it is on the monthly chart. If you notice, we went through a period of low ADX and then it kind of popped up and then it came back down, but it never got through the key level that we were looking for on the longer term time frame. Now, if you notice what took place here, we actually, when we had the pinch play on the monthly chart, we formed a reverse divergence right at the zero line. All right. Now, I'm not necessarily thinking that I'd be playing this in advance because I know I'm looking for a big breakout. And I'm actually, where I entered this was actually on this big green bar. This would have been an early entry signal, which could have been done, but this was really the entry level. And I wanted to be sure it was clearing this whole area and starting, a major uptrend. And so from that point on, we do our scaling and trailing, and it just kept going and going. Turned into a long-term capital gain, especially for the last couple pieces. But what I wanted to focus in on is this key of looking for a low ADX condition and a low ADX condition and we want price. We want to be able to draw trend lines on price. So if price isn't giving you the opportunity to draw trend lines because it doesn't have a pattern to it, then it's not quite as appealing. Let me just give you another example of this. Now, this was Amerisource Bergen when it actually triggered into place. This was another trade that I did after watching this develop for a very long time. Let me go to 2020. Let me just bring this up to date. So if you can see what took place. Now, this was a lot sloppier on the weekly chart, right? But you can see on the monthly, we had this long sideways line that developed. And look at how long this ADX pattern was below this 25 level. And notice how for even 2 or 3 years, all 3 lines was below the 25 level. Okay. So when we have that, we can really kind of get, I think, pretty excited that something big is developing, meaning there's a lot of energy being stored up for a move. That's what we're looking for, is stored energy. All right. Now, on the smaller time frame, we really wanted to wait for this to get going here. Pretty much as it crossed 100, pull back in this zone right in here is where I did the buy. And again, it was another one that really just kept going. And in fact, it's still really going. If you look at it, it has not broken the 18 months since that kicked into place. All right. Now, what I want you to keep in mind is that not every one of these stocks is going to turn into a multi-year uptrend, but you increase your odds. And the way I look at it is that if I'm playing trades off the monthly and the weekly, I am a trend follower. All right. I'm just a trend. I'm just like any other trend follower. The only difference is I've got this massive edge that I know that if a stock breaks out using with a low ADX condition like this, the probabilities of it going up substantially are much, much higher. So we can put ourselves in a position to shrink our universe down to find stocks that have the potential to do something like this. And I think when we do, we can really take advantage of it. I will, as we're going through the symbol requests, I'll also bring up a couple of stocks that are developing like this right now. If you're enjoying the content, hit that like button and also subscribe. So my services can be found at rabilstockresearch.com. I'm on this page right now. You can see at the top, I've got my advanced trend and momentum courses. There's 3 different courses now. I've individually priced them, or you can buy them as a bundle, and they are lifetime access now. So I changed that. It's not year to year. Okay. And then we have the individual package. I have about 2 to 3 reports each week, plus a special video, weekly video for that package that covers a lot of details into what I'm seeing for the week. So if you have an interest, go ahead and take a look. Also, the book is on the book tab. You can go if this is a good place to start if you're new to my methodology. So my comments are for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investments. All right, so we're going to start out with the QQQ, and I'm harping on the same kind of point. Now, I mean, you can look at the monthly; it's in a good trend. There's nothing really that troubling. The only thing I'll say is that we've had sort of an extended period away from the 18-month, and a lot of times, what happens when you go through periods like that, when you turn over into a new calendar, you tend to see some reversals take place. So just something we want to be on the lookout for. It doesn't mean it's got to happen, but it could. And but I don't see any signs of momentum loss on this time frame. But if you go back and look at what happened in 2021, right at the end of 2021, this also had very good momentum characteristics. So we got to be on our toes as we flip over into a new calendar year always, especially when the weekly chart is showing this specific pattern, which is we're making a higher high in price. And this time, so if you go back and look at prior peaks, ADX made a really nice peak. ADX made a peak. It wasn't quite as high, but it was above the 25 line, which is good enough. All right. But now on this peak, we're at 21, and we've been going up and broken out now for about a month and a half. And this is still well below the 25 line. So as we flip over into 2025, If this comes up to the 25 line and we get some kind of a reversal in price, I think we want to heed that as being fairly important, at least for some kind of a corrective pattern to develop. All right, so that's kind of what I'm looking out for. Now, what I'll say is that I don't think it's imminent, and that's why I'm thinking it's more into 2025, because we've got pretty good momentum conditions in place on the daily chart. So I like to do this multiple time frame analysis because it can give us a real good edge in terms of determining as to when we should be expecting weakness. So this is sort of telling us to be on the lookout for weakness, but this is telling us not necessarily going to happen in the next week or two, just based on how strong the price action is right now. The other good sign I'll say for the QQQ is that we've had a real good move here this last month in the relative strength versus the S&P. All right, so that is a good confirming sign, but it doesn't alleviate the risk of this having some kind of a turn early next year as we get into 2025. Now, when we go to the IWM, this is sort of interesting because if we look at the monthly chart, you can see why I keep bringing this up. So we've got sort of like a cup and maybe it forms a handle or something like that. I don't know, but we've got this kind of cupping pattern. Now, we don't have trend lines to draw on price, but look at what we do have. We have this low ADX condition that's been in place for 2 to 3 years, right? And so I think we need to recognize the potential in this. We've gotten some movement to the upside. ADX hasn't been able to cross above 25, but you can see the buyers are in command, or at least the sellers are pretty weak. What we need is a little bit more strength in the buyers to really kind of break this out. And what we're looking for in terms of confirmation is a move in the relative strength line. If we go and look at what the QQQ did, right? The QQQ went up over the last 4 weeks. Well, over the last 4 weeks, this has actually dropped. We're still looking for this to cross this line here, this level here, and get this moving and get this moving average line moving to the upside. We have not had that happen in a few years, and we really need that if this index in small caps and a broadening effect is going to start moving in that type of a favor. So we got to keep a close eye on this because of the low ADX condition that's in place, but we need some more strength, I think, to get things going. All right, let's go through some symbol requests. Now, I do have a special little treat, holiday treat or whatever as I go through. When I get through the individual requests, I do have 5 stocks that are meeting the criteria that I talked about in the lesson right now. Now, they're not exactly there, but I'm going to go through what I'd be looking for in those that will, kind of set them up. All right, let's start with Disney. I've had some questions about this. I do think this is a pretty decent turnaround pattern. It was down. It came into this major support zone down here and right around the 100 area, but it overran it a little bit. We started to see the momentum start to switch a little bit. We noticed that the momentum was sort of dying to the downside as it went to a new low here, really kind of lost some strength. And then we moved up and touched the 40 and then pulled back to an 18 that was turning around. This is a 40 to 18 bounce. And then we get a nice green bar here. That's essentially what's showing on the weekly. So I think this is a really good sign. The problem I've got with this is that I don't know that it's ready to just take off. I have a feeling, just based on what I'm seeing, is that this could fiddle around in here, maybe below the 125 level, maybe get itself in gear a little bit more into the new year, and then potentially break out through the 125 level. And I think that could be very intriguing if it takes place that way. I don't know that I'd be as interested in this if it broke through 125 right now. I'd like to see it kind of maybe create a little energy, build up a little energy on the weekly chart before it tries to break here. All right, so VEEV has an interesting pattern on the monthly because it was down, right? And then it started to form and we had this 18-month line, and then it was starting to try and respect the 18-month. All right, we're trying to get the MACD through the 0 line, and we're trying to get green DI to break out. We don't have any of those conditions in place, but we're a lot closer than we were, a year ago, 2 years ago, as this was declining. So we've gone through the decline phase, we've gone through the basing stage, and now we're trying to emerge out of this basing stage. The problem is that if you notice what happened, it looks like it's not ready. We had King, Queen, followed by king, queen. You see what I mean? Like, here's the breakout level that would be real important. We get through on one bar, nice king bar to the upside, strong green bar, and then we give it all back the next week. All right. And then we actually clear that level on a closing basis, leave a little bit of a tail. But more important to me is that the following week we give it all back, right? So that's not the type. That's not conducive to, upside follow through and ready to go right now. What that's telling me is there's still too many sellers in this at this stage, and then it's going to need a little bit more time before it's ready to get going. Now, the bigger picture pattern is telling us it should happen, but if we keep getting red bars like this, then it's going to take a lot longer. It could spend a lot more time in this basing stage before it's really ready to go. All right, let's look at AMD. I get a lot of questions about AMD, and I see a lot of people talking about this. It doesn't appeal to me that much right now. I thought that this was trying to hold the 18-month line, but over the last couple months, it's slipped down through the 18-month. The MACD has slipped down through its signal line. Now, that's on the monthly chart. All right, so that gives us sort of like a backdrop of what's taken place. Now, I can also recognize there's a lot of support underneath. I mean, I don't think there's a significant amount of downside in this. The problem I've got is that because we're making these lower highs and lower lows, I think we're going to need to break that trend. We're going to need to break a downtrend, maybe make a higher low here instead of a lower low, or maybe we get some volume and get a little spike and then reverse, right? If we can get something like that. The good news is there's not a lot of strength in the sellers on the weekly chart. Even though we are making drops, the ADX is not moving to the upside, and I'm kind of encouraged by that based on how there's limited selling pressure, right? So I'm sort of the opinion that this is going to take a little bit of time into early next year. Where I would get concerned is if we got a violent break of this key level here and we didn't get an immediate reaction back to the upside, right? That would put a lot of pressure on the 100 area, and this stock could have some downside risk if that happens. All right, let's look at DNB, Dun & Bradstreet. So I like the way this is turning. We've got a really good volume pattern here. And then you see how the volume was really heavy on the way up. And then as it pulled back, it was light. And now it's heavy again. And now it looks like it's light as it's pulling back. So I like that behind it. All right. Now, when we look at what's taken place, we are coming up against the 40-month moving average. But I'm not so sure I'm thinking that is that important. What's more important to me is that we made a marginal new high here and we didn't really see how green DI showed a lot of strength here. And then when it pulled back and tried to go to a new high, it really didn't even get above 25. So even though the volume pattern is decent, it's telling me that maybe we need a little bit more of a convincing breakout through this 12.5 area. So what I'd like to see is this hold the 18 and then get a green bar up through this breakout area now. All right. Now, if you played it on a pullback here, I have no problem with that. I would stick with it. I would stick with my plan. I wouldn't exit it based on what's taking place here. But if I'm looking at a new entry now, I kind of want to see some strength up through that zone. All right. Okay, let me quickly go through a few examples. So here's Square. Now look at what's taken place here. We've been it's only been a couple years. This one's on the early side. We went through the down phase, we're forming a base. I'd actually like to see this maybe spend a little bit more time working sideways with a low ADX condition. But if you look at the weekly, this is the reason why I wanted to bring it up. We've had an extended period of a low ADX condition. We have a nice looking pattern here. So this might not be one of those ones that goes up for years. It might be more like a 6-month type of pattern, but we could make some pretty good money in this. Certainly up into this next resistance zone around 150 is what it looks like to me. So I'm looking for a pullback. I want to see this come in a little bit closer to the 18-week. And see if it can't give us a little closer entry to this last breakout zone here. So we want to get that at least to check back a little bit more, and I think that really will improve the risk-reward scenario in this one. Now, let's look at Deere. Deere has spent the last 2 years with the low ADX condition as price has moved sideways. And notice what the MACD did. MACD has essentially formed, kind of a a zero line reversal with a reverse divergence, right? So we've got that. And then if we go and look at the weekly chart, look at this massive green bar breakout on abnormal volume and look at how long we have had a low ADX condition. You see how long this has been below? So this is another one that, yeah, it's been going on a couple of years, and now the ADX is crossing above. I think if we can get a hook to form a higher low here, this could be a stock that could play very well next year. Look at EQT. So we get this strong move to the upside, and now again, it's been about a year and a half below the 25 line on an ADX basis, but look at the strength that has formed recently. Now, this is an energy stock. I mean, energy is not trading well. The fact that this is trading the way it is very impressive. I think we want to keep an eye on something like this, again, as it pauses a little bit longer and lets the 18-week catch up. Now, look at something like Grab. This has had a low ADX condition for several years, and now all of a sudden we get this explosive move. After a low ADX condition on the weekly, we get this explosive move, and now we want to be looking for, when we hit low ADX on 2 consecutive time frames like this, we now want to look for the first pullback closer to the 18, all right, after we show strength like this. So we haven't had that opportunity yet. We've had the breakout entry in this, but we have not had the pullback entry. So we're looking for the first time we get kind of a correction back, and that could be very intriguing. All right, last one is this HON. So MACD cupping around right at the zero line, but look at how long we've had a low ADX condition in place, and then we get this breakout pattern after we can draw our trend lines and see that had broken. We also had a low ADX condition on the weekly chart, and look at the volume pattern as this is emerging out of here. So these are the kind of names I'd be on the lookout for as we get into 2025. Thanks for watching today. So I won't be doing a show next week. I hope everyone has a happy and safe holiday season. I will do one on New Year's week, right after New Year's. So if you have any requests, go ahead and send them over. Also, if you want to learn more about some of these techniques, you can go to my YouTube channel called Invest Like a Pro. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time.